I'd like to welcome everybody today. We are starting a little bit earlier than we originally thought, but it's Friday, so it's Friday Facebook Live with Tanya and the expert legal panel. Carl, I can't see your face. You seem to be dark. I don't know if you want to maybe...
Okay, well, maybe I should.
Okay.
I was going to ask you that.
Okay, sounds good. So we want to make sure to welcome everybody and to do an introduction. My name is Tanya Friedman, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Kinetics, a recruitment company. We specialize in the direct hire of international nurses to the US, and we work with facilities all over the US. In every state, both hospitals, nursing homes, surgery centers, correctional facilities, etc. So I want to welcome everybody here today. And the reason why we're doing this forum is I know many of you that are listening have been waiting for many years to come to the US. I see your posts into this forum, and many of you have been waiting for so many years. It's such a frustrating process. I know that a lot of you have been caught up with the retrogression and have gone to Canada now, waiting to come to the US. So it's been many years of frustration, hurdles, and barriers to come to the US. And I think it's really important for you to get the information from the legal experts and for them to give you a chance to answer your questions. I also want to thank the administrators, David Salcedo, for giving us the opportunity, and let's get started. So I see online we have Isa, Melanis, Jen, Rachel asking questions. Please, this is your opportunity to ask questions, and I will try to get through as many questions as we can. So I'd like to introduce Chris Musello and Carl Schusterman.
Hello there.
I'm going to read off a brief bio on both of the lawyers. I've been working with Chris and Carl. I don't even know, how many years is it, Chris and Carl?
How many years what?
How many years have we been working together?
Wow, a long time.
Middle of last decade for me, Tanya, you and I've known Carl for probably 20 years.
Right.
A long time. So we're very excited to have you on the panel because I think your expertise is going to be so valuable for so many people listening. I'm going to read off a brief bio about Carl and a brief bio about Chris. This information will also be posted into the forum for you to have a look at. So Carl has 40 years of experience in practicing immigration law. He served as a trial attorney for the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service from 1976 until 1982. He's one of the very limited number of attorneys who've been designated as certified specialists in immigration and naturalization law. For more than 10 years, he's been voted as one of the best lawyers in America, a super lawyer by his colleagues at the bar. He was featured in February 2018 as the super lawyer in the Super Lawyers magazine. He's been named one of the top 15 corporate immigration lawyers in the US by Human Resources magazine. And this has earned him the highest rating in legal ability and ethics from the prestigious Martindale-Hubbell Legal Directory. He is in the international who's who of corporate immigration lawyers. So, a true expert, Carl.
Thank you, Tanya.
Also introducing Chris Musello. Chris is the managing partner and moderator of LaFora. He's been an immigration attorney since graduating from the University of Cincinnati College of Law in 1998. He specializes in immigration for healthcare, information technology, staffing, relocation, engineering, and financial. His client base is wide-ranging and includes the largest healthcare companies in the US, many of them that we work on together, right, Chris?
That's right.
And prior to starting Musello Unkenholt, he was a partner at the large Midwestern immigration law firm. He's been featured in American Immigration Lawyers Association annual publication law book. Cincinnati Bar Report, worldwide ERC mobility, and a variety of online applications. A speaker at American Immigration Law Association, Staff Industry Associates, Healthcare Interaction, American Association for Healthcare, Human Resources Association. So really, the list goes on and on and on. I think everybody knows now we have the two foremost experts on nurse immigration in the US on the panel. So please take advantage of this time and make sure to get your questions answered. So I'm going to get right to it. We have a number of people already posting questions. I have some that were sent to me, so I'm going to ask both of you a variety of questions from different people. So the first question we have is from Jen Verado, who asks, what happens if one has sponsored an EB3, but before the visa approval, the sponsorship became a Canadian citizen? Chris, if you want to take that question.
Yeah, so the good answer is nothing negative. Your case will continue to move as it would have had you not acquired Canadian citizenship. The U.S. green card process in its current format works off your country of birth, not your country of citizenship. So the fact that you acquired Canadian citizenship midway through the process will not change the processing time of the green card. Having said that, there is one advantage, which is depending on where you are in the process, there may be reason for you to try and obtain a TN visa. And you'll probably want to discuss that with your recruiter and their lawyer. It's not a difficult process, but you do need to make sure that the TN is done properly and it doesn't conflict with the green card, or you could have a challenge at the border, or the officer could deny your TN entry request. So in many instances, it's possible to get a TN, but not always. So so it's all good news then if you get your Canadian citizenship.
So nothing to worry about, Jen. Is that the dual intent, Chris?
Yeah, TNs potentially could have a dual intent problem. And, you know, depending on the timing of when your green card is going to be approved, what we might do is we might shift your green card interview to, say, Montreal as a consular-based interview, or for that matter, if you're, you know, or Manila, if you're still planning on going to the Philippines, which would ordinarily not conflict with your TN visa. But the border officers and the immigration officers, it's a delicate situation. It's legal, but it's a little subtle, which is why we do like to do a phone call, or at least a series of emails, to make sure that you understand exactly where the law is and what your how you should frame it for the officer, because some of the officers have a knee-jerk reaction of denying TNs when there's a green card in process, although technically they shouldn't. And so we find that if we can frame the case properly, you can still take advantage of the TN. Having said that, if you're very close to getting your green card interview, then it may not make any sense to bother to go through that process of the TN. It often will make sense to just stay with the green card then.
Yeah. So it just depends on the situation. And
yeah, I think you want to talk to the recruiter, talk to the employer, and talk to the attorney.
Yeah. So good advice there, Jen. Make sure that you consult with the team that are helping you with this process, because you want to make sure that you navigate it appropriately. We have a question from Rachel Noble, who asked, my parents and siblings are in Las Vegas. Is it possible to apply in Vegas? I think Rachel, I'm not sure if she's, I think maybe Carl, if you want to take that question, but I think maybe she's applying to the family petition.
Yeah, I mean, Rachel, we do need a little more information to be able to answer your question. I mean, are you applying? Are you in the U.S.? Are you applying as a nurse? Are you applying for a temporary visa? Are you applying for a green card? I mean, if you're in the United States and you're applying for a green card, you always apply where you live. Okay. If you're outside the United States, you're going to apply usually, well, again, where you live. If you're living in the Philippines, you'll apply at the embassy in Manila for your green card. If you're in Canada, you'll apply at one of the consulates, U.S. consulates in Canada. So please give us a little more information or put it online, and I'd be happy to respond to your question.
So Rachel, if you want to give some additional information there, we'd be happy to go through that in a bit more detail. I have a feeling maybe Rachel's speaking about the family visa there, but Rachel, if you want to give us more information for that one. Oh, the questions are coming fast and furious, so keep your questions coming, everybody. We love to see what you're asking so that we can make sure you get your answers. So Tessa has asked a question: do I need an employer to apply for a TN visa, or should I just wait for my Canadian citizenship to get approved to facilitate the process?
Well, you have to be a citizen to qualify for a TN. TN stands for Trade NAFTA. NAFTA is the agreement that the U.S. has with Mexico and Canada. So if you're not a citizen of Mexico or Canada, then you're not eligible for a TN visa. But once you become a citizen of Canada, then an employer in the U.S. needs to sponsor you for the visa.
Okay. And Tessa, I think you might also be asking, I'm kind of reading your question here, I think you might also be asking about the job process. So I can answer that for you. You can actually get a petitioner to give you a job offer before you're a Canadian citizen. So we do have employers that would be prepared to do that. But as Carl said, you would not be able to come through until you're a Canadian citizen. So that is the difference. But we do have many petitioners that will sponsor you before you are a Canadian citizen. We have a question from Mehi Lelis. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm just starting with my NCLEX application. I wanted to ask if my daughter will be over 21 years of age. Would I be able to include her as my dependent? Mehi. Chris, if you want to maybe take that one.
Yeah, so unfortunately, if they're over 21, almost surely they're not going to be able to go through the process with you. They're going to need their own means of visa in order to qualify, unfortunately.
So that is the cutoff, Mehi. The one thing though is if your daughter becomes a nurse, she can get her own TN.
That's right.
So that might be an option for you. Marquis Spot asked, Canadian citizen working as an LPN in Canada, have a valid license in the States as an RN. What is the process of getting a green card if I want to work in the US?
Yeah, so, this is something I know that Tanya, you and Carl and I have talked about a few times. We are seeing some of a lot of interest from U.S. employers in caregivers and nursing assistants and LPNs. Now, the process is not the same as a Schedule A professional nurse, which requires that you have passed the U.S. licensing NCLEX examination. But we are, like I said, we are seeing a lot of interest in people who can fill those kinds of jobs. But it does all come back to finding a recruiter and finding a U.S. employer who is looking to sponsor, like in this case, LPNs. The process is a little longer. It's a little more expensive, frankly, for the employer, but it can be done. And in our office, we've done more of those kinds of petitions in 2019 than any prior year. So the demand for those jobs is increasing quite a bit.
Carl, do you have anything to add on that? Because I know we've spoken about that as well.
Yeah, well, Chris and I actually had a phone conversation a couple of weeks ago about that, because I'm meeting with a firm in Los Angeles that wants to bring caregivers, and Chris has done quite a few of them. And, we were thinking, like, who would be the ideal candidates for them to sponsor as caregivers? So I know a lot of the Philippine nurses are living in different countries where English is not the primary language, like Saudi Arabia and the UAE and so on. So they may have a little trouble passing the English exam when they're not speaking English all day long. So one of the alternatives would be have a company sponsor you as a caregiver to come to the US. Once you're in the US, you're going to be speaking English 24/7. And then you can move up, maybe even within the same company, from being a caregiver to being a nurse. So it really looks like this is a win-win. I mean, the company does need more nurses, but can't sponsor you as a nurse until you pass the English exam. So they sponsor you as a caregiver, and then you move up within the company, your job, your salary, everything else. And they sponsor you as a caregiver, and then a year or two down the line, you become a nurse. And both you and your employer are going to be very happy about that.
Yes, so there definitely are some new options to explore, which I think could be really interesting for a lot of candidates. The one thing that I would like to add, though, Marky, to your question is, if you are working as an LPN in Canada, but if you are an RN, we have many clients that will still sponsor you for the TN as an RN. So we have done many of those kinds of cases. Whether you're working as an LPN in an acute care setting or even in a long-term care setting, we have many clients that will sponsor, and not even just in the nursing homes, but even in the hospitals. So please keep that in mind as well, as an option, because we have lots of clients that are sponsoring for green cards for that, as well as nurses coming on the TN, where they're working as an LPN. In fact, we actually even have a lot of nurses that are coming through now where they are RNs in their home country, like say in the Philippines, and are working as health aides in Canada right now. So, so there are a lot of options that are open. I see Angeline Marie is watching. Hi, Angeline. I know Angeline. Oh, Rachel put in some additional information for us on her question. Rachel Noble is the one, Chris and Carl from who's got the family in Vegas. So she asked, what visa do I need to apply as an RN in the US that I can bring with me my husband and children? I'm a Canadian citizen and applying to work.
Well, yeah, I mean, if she's an RN and she's a Canadian citizen, then she can come on a TN visa. That's pretty clear.
So the TN, Rachel, is a good option for you, but there is just some additional information to share with you, and that is about, you mentioned about your husband and children. So they can come through on the TD visa, but it's important to have a look at what your husband, what occupation, what kind of work your husband does, because he might not qualify for for a TN as well. Chris, do you want to talk about that? Maybe just the spouse and how that works?
So the way the American visa system works is generally on a temporary visa, which are things like the TN, the H-1B. For those visas, generally speaking, the employment authorization is limited to the individual who's being sponsored. So in this instance, the nurse is being sponsored, so the nurse gets a TN classification, which allows the nurse to work. Now, the American immigration policy generally has a family unification desire, so they will allow the husband and the children to come in, but the husband will not get work authorization. So instead of getting a TN1 visa, the husband and children get what's called a TD visa. So this is a good answer for someone where the trailing spouse is going to be staying at home and making the house and raising the children. If the spouse wants to work, then the spouse has to qualify on his own merits, and so maybe the spouse would need to be a nurse. There's a list of TN jobs. It's pretty lengthy, and you can take a look at it, and if the spouse qualifies, then we would get a TN for the nurse who's going to Las Vegas, and then another TN for the spouse, and then the children, of course, would get the TD visas. So that's true for for all of the temporary visas. For the permanent visas, like the EB2 and EB3, work authorization is for all people, both the husband, wife, and any children.
Okay, so I think that's given you something to think about, Rachel. But it's very important to have a look at that. And we had a nurse that came to us recently. She did not go through Kinetics. She went through another company, and she didn't realize that her spouse wouldn't be able to work. and she got herself into a real financial bind because she just didn't realize that before. So it's really important to educate yourself, and that's why I'm so grateful to both Chris and Carl for giving their time. They are really busy lawyers, and for giving their time to make sure to share the information. We have a question from May Espinoza. May says, I'm still in the Philippines. I am an NCLEX passer, but with ongoing Canadian immigration process, what would you suggest? So I think May is asking if she should go to Canada or if she should go to the US. What do you think, Carl?
Well, I've had a lot of personal experience. My wife is from the Philippines, and we've had at least 6 or 7 nieces of hers that it was easier for them to get to Canada when the Philippine backlog was really long. It was 7, 8 years to get a green card back in 2015. So we brought them into the US as TNs. And so that meant they got Canadian citizenship first. And then after they were on TNs, we had the hospital sponsor them for green cards. And I can tell you that they are happier being in the United States. The weather kind of is, especially if you're from the Philippines, but I know even somebody like me from Los Angeles, it can be kind of cold, especially during the winter in Canada. So probably, living in the US in one of the warmer states would probably be a lot better, for a lot of the Filipino nurses. But, it's a personal choice.
Yes, I agree. I think, May, it is absolutely a personal choice. It's important, though, just to educate yourself on the on the licensing and registration process in Canada. And you might want to speak to many of the people that are in this forum, because we know that it's a very frustrating process where you have to go back to school in Canada and requalify as an RN. In the US, obviously, you don't have to do that. But as Carl said, that is your choice. And the good thing is that you've got choices, which is good. I see David Salcido's watching us. Thank you again, David, for giving us the opportunity to share the information to the forum. David is one of the admin of this forum. We have a question from Joanna. She asked, can I stay in Niagara, Ontario and work in Buffalo, New York if I get a TN visa? Chris.
Yeah, that's fine. You would just cross the border, I guess, every day and show them your TN. I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah. So, and we have some nurses that have done that for many years, in Buffalo, in Washington, between Washington and BC, in Detroit. So, Joanna, it should not be a problem at all. Marky Spot had another question. I'm an LPN in Canada and passed the NCLEX for the RN in the States. Do I need to go through the TN visa, or is there a pathway for green card right away?
Well, again, it's a personal choice. It does take a while to get a green card. The waiting times are really down. Although if any of you are checking the visa bulletin, which is the waiting times, the fiscal year of the government starts on October 1st and ends on September 30th. So when you get to September, a lot of the visas are really backed up because they've given most of the green cards for the year. So, don't be depressed by looking at the September dates. You'll see it's a few years backed up. Wait about a week and you'll see the October dates and it'll be much better. But even with that, the employer, has to file a petition for you. They can get it speeded up if they pay a little extra money to the government. It's called premium processing. And then you can be interviewed in the Philippines, or if you live in Canada, you can be interviewed in Canada. The TN's much quicker to come over, but maybe some of the employers, if they can, just go straight to the green card, may not want to bother doing the TN. So you really need to sit down with the employer and then with Chris or myself or whatever lawyer that they're using, and decide whether it's worth it to come in as a TN or to go straight for the green card. I know a lot of the hospitals that I represent, I mean, they have been scouring Canada for the last couple of years. I don't have any firm numbers, but I would guess like about 90% of the Filipino nurses in Canada who want to come to the US, they've already grabbed, but there might be, I'm sure there's some left.
Yes, there definitely are. Chris, any other thoughts on Marky's question?
No, I think Carl gave a great comprehensive answer.
Can you maybe talk a little bit? I know it's difficult now with the visa bulletin being in a slight retrogression right now, and hopefully we're going to get some good news soon. We're all praying. Excuse me. But can you maybe talk a little bit about like timelines and what we might be able to expect?
Yeah. So the U.S. Fiscal year runs from October 1 to September 30th. So we only have about 3 weeks left in the U.S. fiscal year. And on the employment-based visa side, the U.S. government is authorized to issue 140,000 employment-based visas every year, October 1 to September 30th. And so the reason that the August and September visa bulletins are often retrogressed is because the U.S. Immigration system is using its 140,000th visa. And so they have to put the brakes on the entire program. And it's actually a good thing. If the visa bulletin stayed current through September 30th, that would mean maybe they only issued 137,000 visas and there'd be 3,000 visas that went unused, and they do not get to be rolled into the next year's quota. So it's actually a good thing that the visa bulletin retrogresses in August and September. Now, come October 1st, there's a new allotment of 140,000, and I'm not going to get into the details of exactly how they're allotted on a per month basis, and candidly, I'm not entirely sure if I understand how they do it. It's a quarterly system, but suffice it to say, the U.S. government's goal is to stagger the 140,000 visas over the course of the fiscal year. Truly, if they wanted to, they could probably use all 140,000 visas in October. But the embassies wouldn't be able to handle that kind of volume, et cetera. So what will happen is the October visa bulletin usually comes out in the middle of the month. We'll see it in the next maybe 10 days or so. And it will likely list Philippine EB3 as either current or pretty close to current. And my sense is if it's not current, that's only because they don't want a big rush of visas in October and maybe November. And so even if it's not exactly current, my guess is it will at least be in 2019. And then over the course of October and November, the government may feel comfortable, and then they may make it current probably by no later than December. But they may even make it current in October if there's just not that many visas backlogged in the queue. If they don't release that level of data. But in any event, the good news is come October, November, December, we're going to see very quick processing times. So now is an ideal time to begin your EB3 process if you haven't already.
Which is really great news, because I know so many people that are listening today have been waiting for so many years to come to the US, and it's been such a long, frustrating journey. And I think just listening to the two of you, it just kind of comes to mind about how many more opportunities there are for nurses right now than there actually has been in more than, I don't even know, like probably about like 10, 12 years, right?
I think it's probably the best visa bulletin time frame since 2005 or 6.
Wow. So very, very important to hear that. Please share this Facebook Live session with all your friends and colleagues, because if people are still interested in making the American dream come true, this is the time. We have many nurses right now who are writing their NCLEX or taking the IELTS again. Many nurses who were blocked in the last retrogression. So really, this is your time. So, oh my goodness, we are almost out of time. I can't believe it. So last question is from Mehai. I hope I'm pronouncing that one correctly. Hi, Ms. Tanya. What are the possibilities of having a job offer in the US for nurses who don't have bedside experience? Mostly Middle East, Filipino female nurses are in the dermatology setting. Okay, so I think that was a question for me. Yes, we definitely can help you, Mei. And we have facilities that will take you without recent bedside nursing experience. However, it's probably going to be more, you would have to be flexible in terms of the setting and the location, but you're welcome to contact us and we would be happy to help you. Okay, and the last one I'm just squeezing in is from Stephanie, who said, hi, Ms. Tanya, I am a Canadian citizen and NCLEX passer. I just want to ask if I do need to take IELTS if I get the TN visa. Carl, do you want to take that last one?
Right. So anybody who goes to a nursing school outside of the US or a few English-speaking countries like Canada, Britain, Australia. So I'm guessing that you went to nursing school in the Philippines. So you will have to pass the IELTS or the TOEFL, get the visa screen before you can get either a TN visa or a green card.
Okay. So Stephanie, also just to let you know that Kinetics have a free IELTS support group. It is on Facebook and you are welcome to join. There are a lot of materials that are posted there free of charge to you to help you to prepare for the IELTS. In fact, it's quite interesting. Many nurses seem more nervous about the IELTS. Chris, I don't know if you've noticed that. Many nurses are more nervous about the IELTS than the NCLEX exam.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot of the nurses are less comfortable with the IELTS exam, and I know sometimes the testing facilities aren't that great, which is probably a large part of the problem.
Yeah, so you need to give yourself time to practice, and you're welcome to join the Kinetics Facebook group to get in as many pointers and tips as you can. We can also put you together with a study partner. So as Chris and Carl said, there's never been a better time in many, many years to come to the US, either on the TN or as on a green card. So we look forward to seeing you all in the US soon. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Carl, for your time. Time flies when you're having fun. We wish everybody a good weekend, and we will be doing these Facebook Live sessions once a month. Thank you for all the questions to everybody who participated. I have many additional questions that were also posted to us, so I'll make sure to ask that in the next session. And feel free to share this with your colleagues and friends because we want to get the word out. There is no better time to come to the US than right now. Thanks again to David and the admin team for giving us the opportunity. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.